All right, what's good people? Welcome to the channel. This is gonna be my first video on this is my 2A Phoenix channel, and this is everything 2A as I go on my 2A journey, right? So one of the things that I think would have been really helpful for me is knowing a little bit more of what to expect after getting my LTC, right? LTC in my state, license to carry, you need one of those to conceal carry, right? So everyone usually gets their LTC and they're like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to go, I'm going to grab me a firearm and just kind of like move along with life. But there's so much other stuff that I wish financially I would have thought about when I was getting my LTC, right? It's bigger than you just going and grabbing a firearm, right? There's a lot of other little costs that you really do need to consider when you got your LTC. So we'll just, enable this. You got your LTC, now what, right? So everyone always starts off, they're going to go and get whatever firearm that if you were like me, you went and researched all sorts of firearms and figure out what caliber you wanted to get, how big it needed to be, and all of those things. And then you got to think about, once you, go along those lines, what kind of holster are you going to get for it? Because you want to be able to carry comfortably. Because if it's not comfortable, if it doesn't conceal the way you need it to conceal, you're not going to carry it, right? So you got to think about that. And I think for me, holster shopping was probably one of the most irritating parts of the whole process, because you go to your local shop, and my local shop, they only had just straight Kydex holsters. And for me, that Kydex was uncomfortable for, how I want to carry. I carry strong side. That's how I carry. It is not always the most concealable, but that is the most comfortable for me. There are some people who live and die by appendix carry. I can't carry appendix. It's not comfortable for me. I don't like it. So some people carry appendix, some people carry strong side, some people carry off body, which I would not definitely recommend. You need to have it on you at all times, right? Some people carry at like 430, which is like more going towards the small of your back. It all depends on what's comfortable for you, your body type, how you want to conceal. But for me, I carry strong side, 3 o'clock, maybe a little 315. And that's the most comfortable carrying space for me. So the challenge to that was trying to find a holster that accommodated that. At the end of the day, I went with a hybrid holster that was part Kydex, part leather, because that was the most comfortable and concealable for me. And I can do a little segment about holsters later on. But you definitely want to think about, figuring out what is going to be the most comfortable holster for you, right? And then alongside that, now we have to come with the EDC belts, right? Your everyday carry belt. There are so many different lines that you could go through, but a good EDC belt makes carrying more comfortable. So if I would have knew about that, I probably would have had to factor that into, my whole carrying needs and things to think about after I got my LTC. So a nice EDC carry belt is definitely something you want to consider. And I can send you down the whole rabbit hole of, the different belts that you can get. I can tell you about mine. We'll talk about that a little later. One of the most important things you have to think about, you got your LTC, now what, right? Where are you going to practice at? Where are you going to train at? What range or what club are you going to become a member of? Because it's one thing to have a license to carry. It's another thing to be proficient with whatever you're going to carry. And that is the space where that, for me, because I'm in Massachusetts, it makes it a little harder to find one that meets the needs of me. So I made sure that I had the club that I joined had a range that I could go to with hours that I would be able to go to, right? And it doesn't have, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have everything that I would like, because all the stuff that they do have kind of meets the needs of where I am for what I'm carrying and what I'm doing, right? So I got an indoor pistol range that I can go to. I got an outdoor rifle range I can go to. I got outdoor, pistol ranges that I can go to. So that way, as I grow in my carrying journey, I'm still able to utilize that same range. I'm able to go and train when I need to train and, when I want to train. And that's the most important part. Not only to be able to go, but to be able to go as frequently as you want to, and in a way where you can utilize it when you want to, not only when, your schedule allows, but even like mine, I have a 24-hour indoor range that I can go to for pistol shooting. So if I want to train with my pistol, I can do that. If I wake up like 3 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep, then hey, I could go to the range if I wanted to. Is that going to happen? For me, not necessarily. But just to be able to have that, you do have to keep that as a consideration, because you need to train with what you're going to carry, right? You don't want to go and get some big caliber, hand cannon and then you can't control it. You haven't trained with it. You can't hit the broadside of a barn, because once you start letting off, you're responsible for wherever those shots travel to. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of club or range membership that you can go and train, and that can get kind of pricey depending on what's available to you. If you're in like a rural area where that's not really a big deal, you can just go out in the woods, and bravo to you. But I am not. I live in the city. So, club memberships, I've seen some where initial fees plus the yearly membership can be $350, $400, $500. Mine fortunately was less expensive. Thank God for that. But, you do have to figure out where you're going to go to train. And that is something that you want to be very, very cognizant of. Depending on what state you're in and the laws that they have, you may need to get a safe for your weapons, and depending on what you plan on getting will determine how big or small of a safe that you can get. And this is just for like in the house. You want to be able to think about, all right, well, where am I going to store these? I know in Massachusetts, we do have safe storage laws where you do have to have your firearms in a safe. So thinking about that, like, that incurs a cost, and a good safe can run you some money. It could be like $300, $400, $500. So you got to think about that. If you work in a space and you really do plan on genuinely carrying every day, and you work in a career that does not allow you to be able to bring your firearm to work, and you want to carry, right? Then you got to think about a portable safe. How you're going to lock it up if you're at work. I don't recommend keeping weapons in the car for long periods of time at all. I actually don't recommend keeping them in the car at all. But if you have to, you have to. But you want to be mindful about that. You want to make sure you have a safe that you can tether to the seat. That unless you have a really strong set of bolt cutters, you ain't getting that bad boy off. You want to think about something like that. And I would not recommend, keeping something in the car for long periods of time, but just like a portable safe for if you have to, that's something that you need to think about. Another thing that I didn't think about was the price of ammunition. Oh my gosh. If you're buying from a local shop, ammunition can add up really, 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 really quick. I tend to order online. So if you have an online supplier, you can find ammunition that's relatively good priced, overall, that's going to save you money. So ammunition supplier is going to be, top tier, because training costs money, and you got to train. That's the only way to get better. You got to train. You got to be proficient with whatever you're carrying, right? And then finally, one of the most underrated things that we fail to think about until we actually have to use it is a cleaning kit. How are you going to clean your weapons? You have to get a cleaning kit to clean your stuff so that it stays in tip-top shape and working order. So just things to think about, after you get your LTC. It's not just I'm going to go grab a firearm and be happy-go-lucky and just go on my way. And those are some of the things that I didn't think about, when I was getting mine. And then like as I started thinking about it and working and then, shooting around and stuff, it's like those things start to add up real quick. So just keep those in mind. And, as you're going on your 2A journey, and there's more to come. Hope you enjoyed. Hope this was informative. Leave your comments if there's something that you think I forgot. Drop it in the comments because it could be helpful for someone else who's trying to do the same thing that we are. All right, y'all. Be blessed. And remember, stay dangerous.